Furry Family Coach, and in this video we're talking about help. Yes, help. If you are switching your cat's food and they are not eating, then my dogs are about to start barking because my husband is about to walk back in the door. So I'm sorry ahead of time. And then they didn't bark. So I'm switching my cat's food and they're not eating. Like, that's a big problem. So I want to dedicate this entire video to just our cats, because all of the research I've done so far in this transition to a raw food diet, but really any transition from one diet to another, these same things apply, these same things happen. And dogs tend to transition easier than cats, and that's obviously unless you have a dog who maybe has food allergies or is overly finicky. Most dogs are not overly finicky, but there are some out there. But we're going to dedicate this video to cats and transitioning cats to any new food diet, whether it's from kibble to a wet food or to a raw food diet, which is what I'm currently trying to do. So before I get into that, I wanted to tell you I am super excited today because I saw a video I posted around, I want to say 10:30 this morning, on Rodney Habib's Facebook account. He and Karen Becker did like a 30-second video, and I was telling you in a previous video that Dr. Becker's book about real food for dogs and cats was out of stock, and I was having difficulty finding it because, I could find it, but it was selling for upwards of like $350 on Amazon, which is crazy for a book, right? And this isn't a textbook. I mean, this is just a paperback book. So I'm so excited today because on Rodney Habib's Facebook account this morning, he and Karen Becker posted a video. It was just a quick 30-second video where they were commenting on the fact that her book is out of stock and selling for hundreds of dollars. And she's like, seriously, that's crazy. Don't pay that kind of money for it. Which was funny in itself, but they have combined forces and they are coming out with a new addition to her Real Food for Dogs and Cats book, where Rodney Habib is going to be a contributor, and it's going to focus on more homemade diets, raw homemade diets, and really go into detail about homemade diets for dogs and cats who have various diseases. Because as we know, when dogs and cats have illnesses, a lot of times that requires special dietary needs, and a standardized diet may not cut it, especially if you have an older cat or a cat who's in renal failure, or a dog who has some sort of problem, a cat or a dog who's diabetic. You know, they're going to need different things nutritionally than the average cat or dog would. So I'm super excited about that, and I wanted to share that with you. So let's get back to the topic of this video, which is transitioning your cat to any diet, whether it again be from kibble to wet food, or kibble to raw food, or wet food to raw food. Whatever you're transitioning your cat to, just like the title of this video says, help! I'm transitioning my cat's food and she's not eating. And if you have been following my videos at all, you know that if a cat stops eating, it is serious. Very different from a dog, where a dog can go 2 to 4 days, I'd say 2 to 3 really days, and if they're not eating at that point, then you need to contact your veterinarian. But with a cat, so incredibly different. If your cat hasn't eaten in 24 hours, it's serious, and you need to call your vet, make an appointment, get in there and take your cat to the vet, because so many things can happen. I would suggest the very first thing you do is contact your vet, but I'm going to give you some tips in this video about how to transition and what to do if your cat does stop eating. So let's get right into it. Right now, the reason that I'm doing this video is because I am transitioning my dogs and cats to a raw food diet. My dogs are like rock stars. They are almost there. They are like, I'm probably taking it too slowly, quite honestly, but they're like half and half right now, and it's been about a week, and so they're half and half. They have absolutely no GI upset. They're not vomiting. They don't have diarrhea. Everything is going really well. They love eating the raw food. So we're going to continually increase their raw food while decreasing their current homemade diet. And I really contribute a lot of the success that my dogs are having in this transition to a raw food diet to the fact that they've been on a homemade food diet already for the past about 3 years. Kim has been with us for a little over a year, and she's been on a homemade diet ever since we brought her into the house. And she transitioned beautifully at that point, because honestly, when we adopted her from the rescue, she was just on a kibble diet, and we brought her in here. I didn't even have kibble in the house for dogs, so she went like immediately to a homemade diet, and she really did beautifully. There was like no issues at all transitioning her, which I was very thankful for, because she was still kind of a puppy, so that's probably why it was easier. But let's get back to the cats. So my cats are on varying levels in this transition, which makes it a little bit more difficult and a little bit more trying, but we're gonna get there. And I've done a lot of research. I've read a lot of stuff. I've ordered a few books because there's so much information online. And if you just do a Google search, you can do a Google search and change out one word and you're gonna get totally different results, right? So there's so much information online. Some of it's good and some of it's bad. In fact, I read one just last night preparing for this live video, and it was a very reputable website. I can't, like PetMD or something like that. And don't quote me on that. I could be wrong about the website, because I've looked at so many of them. But so they said when you're transitioning your cat, you should start by trying to just do it cold turkey. And if that doesn't work, then do XYZ. Never ever transition your dog or cat cold turkey to any new diet, but we're especially talking about cats here because their digestive system is so much more sensitive than any other mammals, than our digestive system, than the dog's digestive system, than a cow's digestive system, than a pig's digestive. So they're so much more sensitive, and they have not evolved the way our dogs have. They're still very wild genetically. So when you try to just abruptly change their diet, it's gonna backfire on you in a big way. So please don't do that. What we need to do, I have some cats who are like, okay, fine, I'm just gonna start eating the wet food. And I have some other cats that were previously eating wet food, and now because I have cut back on the kibble, like they're getting frustrated and they're not even eating the wet food. So I'm having to really dig in and find out as many different ways as I can to help them transition smoothly, because I want to get them to a raw food diet. But here's what we have to do. So no matter what you're wanting to change your cat's diet to, whether it's kibble or wet food or kibble to a raw diet, if you are trying to switch them from kibble to a raw diet, you can't skip that step of the wet food. So we first have to transition our cats from kibble to wet food, and then once they are solely on wet food, then we can transition them to a raw diet. So what is the best way to do this? Because no matter where you're starting out, we got to get them off the kibble. So this can be one of the most difficult things to do, because let me tell you, carbohydrates are freaking awesome, I love them. I have a hard time not eating them. I'm really trying. I actually have really been trying in the past couple of months to limit my carb intake, and I have been fairly successful. I'm not completely removing them from my diet. That's dangerous actually to do, but I have limited them quite significantly from where I was just a few months ago. And I know how hard it was for me, and I can only imagine how hard it is for my cats, because they're not making this decision for themselves. I'm having to be the responsible pet owner and make this decision for them. So it's that much harder for them. They're stuck like on this brainwave of like kibble, 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 kibble. I love this stuff, and that's intentional, by the way. You've probably heard me say this in one of my previous videos, and if you haven't seen any of my previous videos, please check them out on my YouTube playlist, which is a good point. It is a good point in the video to say, hey, thank you so much, by the way, for watching. If you're watching this on Facebook, please go like my page and subscribe, or follow my page to get notifications when I go live. And if you're watching, and go over to my YouTube channel and subscribe to me there as well, so you never miss one of my videos. If you're watching this on YouTube, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Please remember to subscribe to my channel so that you do get updates when I do post new videos, and you get to see them before everybody else does, and you can pass on the information quicker and better and faster and stronger and all that wonderful stuff. So transitioning our cats to any diet away from kibble. Some cats are going to do better than others, obviously, and I've already seen that with my cats. Some of them are like, sure, whatever, I like the wet food, and some of them are like, I want my kibble and I want it now. So what are we going to do? First, we have to start by discontinuing the ad-lib feeding, meaning keeping that food bowl down 24/7. And I'm going to tell you, I still have not gotten 100% to this, because I have previously I was filling their bowls twice a day. So after they ate their wet food breakfast in the morning, I would put kibble in their bowls, and then before I go to bed at night, I would put more kibble in their bowls. And the amount that I put in their bowls would vary depending on how much was left from the day, obviously. But where I'm currently at is that I am giving them some kibble in the evening right before I go to bed, and that's all they get until 24 hours later. And so I'm getting there to the no ad-lib feeding, but typically in the morning, by the time I get up, the kibble is mostly gone, and there's not much left for them to munch on throughout the day, which is fine with me. I'm here, I'm feeding them wet food when I get up in the morning, I'm feeding them wet food for dinner. Again, some of them are happy with it, some of them are not happy with it. So that's the first thing we have to do, is stop the ad-lib feeding. We have to get them on a schedule where they're only getting their kibble twice a day. And I found this really great book called Feline Nutrition, which has helped me plan out my next step by step, what I'm going to do, because so far my cats are all over the place with what they're going to do, what they're going to eat, what they're not going to eat, and I need to get them all on one page. So that's the first step, is that there will be no more ad-lib feeding. They're going to get their meals twice a day. Now, because I'm switching them from kibble to a wet food diet, so that eventually I can get them to a raw food diet, I'm going to be giving them two options at their meals. They're going to get kibble, and they're going to get their wet food. And this is going to be for breakfast and for dinner, and that's what they're going to get. And they have 20 to 30 minutes to eat all of that, whatever it is they want to eat, and they don't get anything else until the next meal. So that's the first step. And some of them will eat the kibble, and some of them will eat the wet food, and some of them will eat a little bit of both, and that's okay right now, because instead of saying my first step is to switch your food, my first step now is actually to switch them from ad-lib feeding to meal feeding. So that's step one. Now what we need to do, and I'm going back to this wonderful feline nutrition book that I got wrapped up in reading recently. So once I get them on a meal plan instead of this ad-lib, whatever, eat whatever you want, whenever you want, way of eating that they've been eating for a long time, so I understand this is going to be difficult. I actually read, so far, the longest amount of time I've read that it has taken somebody to transition their cat from kibble to wet food was 4 months. So I don't feel quite as bad now that in the past 2 weeks I haven't been able to like completely get there. I was really feeling kind of down about it because I'm like, gosh, it's been 2 weeks. Why am I not able to do this? So 4 months is so far the longest I've read, the longest anybody has admitted on the internet to take their cat transitioning from kibble to a wet food diet. So once I get them on a meal plan, meaning they're going to get their meals, breakfast and dinner, and there's not going to be kibble sitting around all day and all night in between. Once we get from that, what the plan is then is to get them off of the kibble completely. So what I'm going to do, what you're going to need to do, is to buy a bunch of different types of canned foods. So you're going to get, the pâtés, you're going to get some of the chunks and gravy, you're going to get all kinds of wonderful, delicious foods for your cat. You're going to try different flavors, whether it be chicken or beef or salmon, trout, I think I saw recently, seafood medleys, whatever you can find out there. Get a whole bunch of different kinds so that you can offer different kinds to your cat to find out which one they're going to like better and better than the others. And that's going to help you transition them from kibble to a solely wet food diet, which is the first step in getting them to a raw food diet. Now, if you're only trying to get them to a canned food, that's great. I mean, that's so much better than kibble. Here's the hierarchy, just so we're clear. The absolute best food you can feed your cat or dog is going to be a species-specific, biologically appropriate raw food diet. That's what I'm currently trying to get to right now. My dogs are like rock stars. They're almost there. My cats are working on it. So that is the absolute best thing you can feed your dog or cat is a species-specific, biologically appropriate raw food diet. The next best thing you can feed your cat or dog is going to be a biologically appropriate homemade food diet, whether it's raw or cooked. So a cooked homemade diet is going to be the next best thing for your pets, as long as it is, again, biologically appropriate. You're feeding them, your cats, a high quality protein diet. Your dogs don't need quite as much protein as your cats do, but they still need a really high quality protein and a good amount of it. And so that's the next best thing that you can be feeding your cats or dogs. Underneath of that is going to be commercially made canned foods. And the reason for this is that, especially with cats, they do not drink enough water on their own to provide the hydration they need. So the canned food is going to have a high water content. It's going to provide your cat with the water intake that they need for the day, as well as many canned foods have far fewer carbohydrates and starches in them. A lot of them you can even find grain-free that are going to be more biologically appropriate for your pet than what would be the least best thing to feed your pet would be a kibble. And again, as I was just alluding to with the canned food, when you feed your cat especially, but this is also true with dogs, dogs just tend to drink a lot more water than cats on their own, but when you feed a kibble diet and only a kibble diet to your pet, you're putting them in a state of dehydration. So that is like the bottom level. So when we're transitioning our cat from kibble to a wet food diet, that's still incredibly admirable. Please do that. Even if you don't intend to continue and transition to a homemade diet or a raw food diet, it's going to be so beneficial for your cat to at least get them off of that kibble and onto a canned food diet, because they are no longer going to be placed in that state of hydration, and they are going to get a lot less carbohydrates and a lot less starches, which their body can't break down in the same way, in an appropriate way. So that's the next step, is to get them, once you get them on a meals, being breakfast and dinner, or however you're going to have it, once you get them on meals away from ad lib feeding, then you want to transition them from kibble to just wet food. Again, get all kinds of different wet foods, all kinds of different canned foods, try them all out, see which one your cat is going to like best. If you have multiple cats, you might find that they all like different things, and that's okay right now, because we're just trying to get them on a wet food diet. So if they need help adjusting from kibble to a wet food diet, you can add all kinds of little toppers to the wet food to entice them to want it even more, from bonito flakes, which are like dried fish flakes that you can get at some specialty grocery stores. And you can add little things on top, like some of their favorite treats, or like a freeze-dried shrimp or a freeze-dried salmon, anything yummy and wonderful like that your cat is going to love. The last thing I would suggest, but you can try it if you really, really need to, is adding some canned tuna into it, or some tuna juice into it. That's going to have a little bit more salt. You don't want to give that to them consistently, but to try to transition them, it's perfectly okay to do that. So take your time. That's the next thing I want to tell you, is to take your time, because your cat, their digestive system is going to need time to adjust to a new diet, especially if they're on a kibble diet currently. And I mean, you just don't want to rush it. Like I said at the beginning of this video, I saw somebody on a very reputable website say to try it cold turkey. Please don't ever do this with your cats. It's dangerous to their health, and you're likely to have it backfire and could potentially get some very costly vet bills out of that. So just take it really, really slowly. Let your cat tell you how quickly or how slowly to take it. Once you get to the point where your cat is on wet food solely, no more kibble, they're getting meal fed and they're only on this canned food diet, then to take that a step further and transition them to a homemade cooked food diet, which again is going to be a little bit better than that canned food, or to go ahead and transition them to a raw food diet, you're going to want to take it really slowly again. And we're going to do just like I told you before in another video with your dogs. You're going to slowly start to replace part of the canned food with some of the raw food or the homemade cooked diet, whichever you're going to transition them to next. And so you might want to start out with a quarter of the amount that your cat is going to eat for that meal, and remove a quarter of the diet they're currently on, add in the same amount of the raw food or the homemade cooked food, and mix it up until your cat can take 2 to 3 days on that. Make sure that your cat's digestive system is adjusting appropriately, that they're eating it. Again, you might have to start with these toppers again and additives to entice them to want to eat. When you've added in a new food, again, you might have to try it all over again, and that's okay. Cats are going to be slower at adjusting than any other animal is going to be, especially your dogs. So just take it really slow, be patient, let your cat tell you how fast to go with this, and you're just going to, over the course of time, as your cat adjusts to having that new food added into their current food, you're just going to add a little bit more and take away a little bit more of the whatever current food they're on. Another really good suggestion that I read about is when you're trying to transition them from kibble, you can actually mix in some of the kibble with the canned food to try to get them a little bit more to want the canned food a little bit more. So if they have some of the kibble in there, it may make them want to eat that a little bit, the canned food a little bit more too. So I know I gave you a lot of information, and the one thing, if you could only take one thing away from this video, I want it to be very, very patient with your cats and take it as slow, even slower than you think it probably should be, because your cats really do need time to adjust. It's not just that, oh, cats are finicky and there's so much trouble. They biologically need that time. Their digestive system needs that time to adjust. Their digestive system, like I was telling you in the beginning of this video, is not evolved. It is as wild as the wild cats they came from. It has not evolved one bit like our dogs' digestive systems have and our digestive systems have. We can put things into our bodies and we don't see immediate effects of some of the bad things we put in our bodies, and the same can be said of dogs. That's just not the case with cats. They need a lot more time. They need a much more biologically appropriate diet. Is going to help them so much. You're going to notice your cat has so much more energy and life and vitality. They're going to look better. Their coat is going to look better. They're going to be so much healthier. So it's going to be so worth it in the long run, because you're going to have your cat around for a longer period of time than you would have if you continue to feed them kibble for the rest of their lives. And you're going to save on vet bills, because they're not going to be that sickly animal when they get older. And gosh, I wish I had known this so many years ago, because I've lost a couple of cats that I really miss, and I could have had them around so much longer if I had just known this information, which is why I'm sharing it with you and I'm so passionate about it. So if you have any questions, any comments about this video, please leave them below. I will respond to any questions or comments, whether it's on Facebook or YouTube. And don't forget to subscribe to my channel on YouTube. That way you get notified every time I post a new video. And follow me, like my page on Facebook, and follow me on Facebook so you get notifications every time I go live. So again, leave me any questions or comments in the comment box below, and I will see you in the next video.